So this year's probably one of the most consistent I've ever been as a full-time creator. I've been posting weekly videos every Friday at 8 p.m. JST on the dot. And on Instagram and TikTok, I've been posting almost daily reels for like the last 2 to 3 years. Now, if you're interested in growth as a creator on these social media platforms, unfortunately, you have to just keep showing up day after day, both in short form and in long form. The amount that you post really varies in your lifestyle, but for me, being really consistent week after week has really exponentially grown my channels, and it's been really beneficial in a freelance creative perspective. Now, the key for me being consistent isn't relying on motivation every week to just get up and go and find something inspirational to create. As I'm sure you know, finding motivation and inspiration is really difficult to do on a consistent basis. Some days you want to get out of bed, other days you don't. And if you rely on motivation, sometimes your structures can really get out of whack. What's worked really well for me over the last few years is building systems. So I don't rely on motivation every week, and I have a set structure and something that I can fall back on and really rely on week after week. Today, I just want to make a video talking about how I plan my content, how I shoot it, the production phase, how I edit it, and then some tips and tricks on how to repurpose content and just overall thoughts when planning your schedules. Okay, so first I want to talk about pre-production or the planning phase. And this, I think, unfortunately, is like the most important thing when you want to create content in bulk and be really productive and really consistent. I used to be a person who was really bad at planning, and I just wanted to go out and create and find inspiration and do cool things. And that works if you want to sporadically post content and just have a more artistic feel. But when you want to get really consistent in your upload schedule, whether it's on long form YouTube or in short form reels, then it's really important to be able to plan out your content strategy over time, sometimes like weeks and months in advance. So first, with long form, one of the key factors for me being able to post weekly this year for the first time for a really extended period of time is being able to plan videos, 4 to 6 videos in advance. The whole point of planning is to make your whole process streamlined from the ideation point. So by having an idea of a video already written out, then you script it out and have general bullet points or an idea of how the theme is going to be, that makes the whole production phase so much easier. And that makes the editing phase a breeze compared to trying to piece together a story based on compartmentalized and fragmented pieces. It's just a difficult thing to do. It's generally the same thing for short form content, where I want to plan out short form content before I even touch a camera. You want to figure out your general flow or your grand idea for the piece of content before you get into the production or the editing phase, and that makes everything else later in the whole process so much easier. Now, how do I do that? Well, basically, I have a few different notebooks that I just jot down stuff all the time whenever an idea comes to my head. But what's really helped me this year is I plan out days, sometimes twice a month, where I just sit down for an hour or two at a time and jot down all the different ideas that I have for A, long form, and then B, short form content ideas. This way, when I actually go ahead and get into my calendar and plan out which pieces of content I want to film and edit for each week, I have a pool of ideas that I can draw from, and I'm not just sitting there trying to think of cool ideas on the spot, where it's difficult to really spark creativity and spark inspiration just on cue. Now, a few tools that I use that really help the ideation process and things I wish I had a number of years ago are brainstorming partners. So I use things like ChatGPT or Claude AI to go ahead and sit down, and basically what I do is I feed it a bunch of different ideas that I have in my head, or I go ahead and screenshot and analyze past pieces of content. I take transcripts or full scripts that I've used in past pieces of content, and I basically just feed and train the chat that I'm working with as much information as I can about the types of content that I create, the niche that I'm in, and overall ideas that I have for content. Sometimes it's as simple as I have a general idea of something I want to speak about, and then I ask ChatGPT or Claude again to just flesh out and give me 10 variations of that content idea, or give me 3 different general brainstorming outlines of that content idea, so that I can go ahead and decide whether or not a piece of idea or piece of content is interesting enough for me to actually talk about, or I have enough personal experience to talk about this idea, or if it's just kind of a crappy idea and I just want to throw it out. The whole point of using these brainstorming AI tools is to amplify your creativity and figure out how to streamline your thoughts into bullet point structures, into various different scripts that you can easily read off and really structure your ideas so that there's a clear kind of beginning, middle, and end. It honestly saves me a lot of time when I'm trying to structure and ideate the number of ideas that I have for, long form or short form. Once I have those general ideas, I keep them all sometimes in a Notion, sometimes I keep them in my Milanote, other times I'll have it just written down, jotted down, and then I'll have this pool of ideas. Sometimes for short form, I have like 50 ideas or general themes that I have, of short form content that I could create for YouTube long form. I have at all times at least, I'd say like 15 to 20 YouTube ideas, basically just like titles and general kind of rough outlines of each title that I have saved. And then when it comes to production day, I have various things that I can draw from. And based on that day, based on my feelings, I can go ahead and just pick and choose what feels right and go ahead and set up camera, record, and I'm pretty much good to go. Along with having a pool of ideas and things that you can draw from, it's really important to create a schedule. And the schedule is what you lean upon, especially when you're feeling not super motivated. So the schedule that I have is I like to plan out my YouTube content at least 1 month in advance. So that's basically having my production days. So the days that I go ahead and set out to film logged out in my calendar. So I have that set. So I know that on that day, I need to film the A-roll or B-roll for a specific video. And then I have an editing day and a revision day and specific deadlines that I have throughout my calendar so that I know that I have to hit these personal. Because when you're working by yourself, if you don't hold yourself accountable to specific deadlines, then it's really difficult to stay on task and stay on schedule. So having these deadlines just created by yourself is kind of akin to working at a company, but when you're the only person working at a company, who's gonna hold you accountable? So having a schedule is really important. Same thing for Reels. Typically, I like to have an idea of what I'm going to post at least 2 weeks in advance so that I know on this date, I need to film this or edit this. Obviously, you can film and edit more than your schedule allows if you have extra time, but just having kind of that bare minimum of I need to post these pieces of content on these days by this time, having that schedule and a calendar built out, whatever program you want to use. Sometimes I use Google Calendar, sometimes I just have like one built into Notion. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this. You can do this by hand. I have a physical calendar that I use all the time. Having a calendar is key to hold yourself accountable and also figure out what your schedule is looking like, because you can't just raw dog everything and figure out what's going to be going where on the fly. A huge help in staying consistent over time is having the right tools, which is why you should check out Artlist, the sponsor of today's video. So you'll know that I talk about Artlist all the time on this channel. They're one of my favorite places to get highly curated music and sound effects, and they've got a whole host of new AI features that help creators in many ways. I previously talked about their song match feature, which is one of my favorite features. It allows you to quickly find songs that are similar to some of your favorite copyright music. You just paste the link from YouTube or Spotify, and Song Match will then find songs that you can use in your creations royalty-free that are super similar to the original song. I'm sure you've seen all the tools and the latest AI features across mine and other creators' platforms. And starting on November 12th all the way through mid-December, Artlist is hosting an annual holiday sale. They're offering 40% off annual AI plans and 20% off the Max Pro annual plan. With these plans, you get access to the leading AI models for video, image, and voiceover generation all in one place. And they're always continuously updating it with the latest models for both video, photo, and voiceover generations. Having a tool like Artlist is really essential, especially if you're a YouTube or short form creator. And now with this holiday sale, it's one of the best times to sign up for an annual plan. Click the link down below for 2 months off your next Artlist subscription. And thanks again, Artlist, for sponsoring today's video. Next up is production and figuring out how are you going to produce the amount of content that you need to do in order to stay consistent. And the number one key for me is removing friction points and figuring out how to streamline your process so that the actual physical action of filming or kind of getting content together is streamlined, it's frictionless, and it's super easy to do. It's almost like a second nature thing where you don't even have to think about it. If you're filming and producing content in a similar location multiple times over, then it's really important to have a ready-made kind of area or setup that allows you to film really quickly. For me, that's been this studio. I have this set up pretty much at all times where I have the mic always ready. I have just a simple one light source that allows me to set up really quickly, just set up my camera, set up my light source, and then set up my microphone. And I'm able to start recording basically in like just a few minutes. Whereas if I didn't have this all set up or kind of pre-programmed, it would take me a lot of time to go ahead and figure out what angle I'm going to shoot from, what light source I'm going to use, what audio, blah, 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 blah. There's a bunch of different things that are holding you back and really makes the process difficult if you don't have these streamlined. I'm not saying that you have to have a studio set up, but for instance, if you shoot all of your A-roll for your short form reels on a specific lens, or you use a specific microphone, just having these pieces of equipment in your mind, you're removing those sort of questions that you need to make, and those sort of questions of, like what kind of camera lens, blah, blah, blah. All these questions add stress, they add friction points, and they really deter you from going out and actually shooting. So removing these friction points in terms of your setup, whether that's your gear, your lighting source, your audio, These sort of things for both short form and long form are really important in allowing you to quickly sit down and record something and be able to consistently put out content, whatever platform that you're doing this on. This studio example is really easy to think about, but if I'm thinking about, let's say Reels and my short form content, even my creative short form content, oftentimes only takes me like 30 to 60 minutes to film everything. When I'm out about filming with Cody or Enzo or a friend and a creative concept, a lot of those Reels take really minimal amount of time because in the pre-production, I know basically what area I'm going to shoot in. I'm really familiar with the gear that I'm going to use. So I streamline basically making sure that I use only 1 or 2 lenses, and I'm really familiar with the setup. And these little friction points of removing these questions and really knowing your gear and knowing your setup, so that basically I just need to focus on the creative part. I don't have to focus on the setup or what I'm going to use. I just go out and try to execute, and it really cuts down on the production time, and that allows you to film a lot more than working on productions for 8 to 10 hours every day. That's just too much. It's not possible to work as a solo freelance creator. This kind of goes hand in hand with shot lists. So figuring out in the pre-production phase exactly what shots you need to get, so that you're just checking off basically what you need to film during production, knowing your locations, whether that's filming a location you've shot at before or going beforehand and kind of surveying an area to understand what areas look good. Basically doing everything that you can so that on shoot day, you're able to streamline everything and really get everything out of the way. This is the same for client projects, this is the same for personal projects, but especially when you're trying to bulk your amount of content you're producing both on long form and short form, knowing your setting, your environment, knowing your gear, knowing your shot list, having all these things done in the pre-production and the preparation phase allows for the production phase to go super seamlessly, and you're able to focus on getting the shots and getting out of there as fast as possible. Now moving along to the post-production and the editing phase of really being consistent. The key here for me personally is having sequences and projects of similar styles of content and just reusing sequences. I've talked about this previously in my Premiere Pro tips, but having sequences of, let's say I'm doing a YouTube video, I'm gonna open up a previous YouTube video that's kind of similar in concept, and then already I have my sound effects that I've used for transitions, I've got my adjustment layers, I got my text, and basically all I need to do is just move everything over, migrate to the side, build out my new project, and then I can quickly grab different pieces from my previous project, and I don't spend a lot of unnecessary time digging through folders looking for a specific sound effect or a specific transition. It's just figuring out ways to make your actual editing process a lot faster, and in the overall scheme of things, that allows you to create more content. It's kind of a lazy way to edit, people would say, but it's also a way to build consistency, build repetition, build brand image. If your reels feel a similar set of way because you're using the same sound effects or the same fonts. Likewise, if you're using YouTube and using the same music, the same sound effects, same fonts, that builds an instant recognizable attribute to your channel, to your face. Maybe it's a location thing, lighting, transitions. These sort of things help build your brand image, and A, it makes your production or your post-production a lot easier, and then B, it allows people to instantly recognize when a piece of content is yours. And these are really important things when you're building a personal brand. Alternatively, if you use other editing softwares besides Premiere Pro, you could just have really organized folders. And if you know really easily where to click and drag files and things like that, if you just really organize in that way, then that's another way to quickly just speed up your editing times, because you don't want to spend a lot of time searching. That's kind of the number one caveat and number one difficulty when you're editing, is searching for different things when you're trying to create a seamless edit. So if you cut down on that amount of time, then it makes your editing process a lot easier. All right, so we touched on the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. And then I just want to touch upon a few different things, a few different concepts that help me really elevate the amount of content that I put out, as well as make my decision making on what types of content a lot easier. So to give you an example, a lot of times I'll do various styles of repeatable content around a specific shoot. Let's say I go out to create an interesting transition fashion reel with my friend Cody. A lot of times when I go out to create a specific piece of content, I'll think about how am I going to be able to maximize the amount of time that I spend shooting, so that I have different various pieces of content that I can use later in my short form as well as my long form. One thing I always like to do is try to capture as much BTS content as possible. When you're filming with a friend or you have somebody on set, it's a lot easier. You can just ask them to go ahead and film, iPhone clips or a second shooter kind of scenario. but a lot of times I'm filming by myself. I know a lot of you probably are filming by yourselves. In this case, it's important to think about what different tools you can use to capture BTS. So sometimes I'm using those Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses that can capture point of view, and then I can use this video later to create BTS reels or even my BTS YouTubes. Recently, I've been a big fan of using 360 cameras. So I've made a whole video about this, but I use like a shoulder strap. So it's just making sure that I've set up my 360 camera and I'm just rolling the entire time as I'm shooting so that I can go ahead and pick and choose and reframe different areas of the BTS content so that I could use again in my short form and long form. And by capturing the BTS content, I'm then able to do a multitude of different types of content around a single hour shoot. A lot of times you guys see the creative video, then I'll go ahead and do a transition breakdown of a specific sequence of that video. Sometimes I'll do an audio sound effects breakdown of a specific portion of that video. You've probably seen on my channel as well, you've seen like before and after sequences, either of color grading or transition styles, showing the raw clip and then showing what it actually became in the final video. And then sometimes I'll do like a long form video talking about the BTS and the thought process of planning out the transitions and then actually executing them and editing them. So really from a single hour of shooting, oftentimes I could get like 5 to 6 to even 7 short form videos as well as a long form video, and then use that BTS clips in additional different long form videos. So you're really trying to figure out how to maximize the amount of content that you can create from a very minimal amount of actual shooting. For me, this is one of the key factors in allowing me to create a large amount of content that feels fresh, but also basically doesn't require me to actually go out and do a lot of legwork. This exact style might work for you, but it might not. Well, the main thesis or main idea that I'm trying to convey is figuring out different ways that you can maximize the amount of time you're spending on set and then using that footage, using the concepts or using different thought processes to maximize the amount of content you can create from limited amounts of production. This is basically reusing, revitalizing footage. Sometimes you can do re-edits or director's cuts of different things. There's a lot of different ways you can get creative of making large amounts of content or different varied styles of content around a single shoot or a single period of filming. Like you could even go to a creative shoot and then talk about the gear that you use to actually film or create that piece of content. You could talk about, production, how you plan something, how you edited something. There's a bunch of different facets and factors that go into productions that you wear a lot of hats, especially as a solo creator or if you're working in small teams, and you can talk about each of these different areas and explain them really well in your short form or long form content. It's pretty much endless. So yeah, being consistent over time as a full-time creator isn't necessarily about having to go out and film every waking second of your day. It's more about being really strategic with your systems and figuring out processes that work for you, and then just relying on your systems and your content calendar to be consistent over time. My system really relies on me planning out my ideas so I don't have to guess on production days, keeping my space and my gear ready and set up so that removes that friction point, reusing templates and content styles and just tweaking them, and then multiplying production days in the edit to maximize results. The whole debate about quality versus quantity is a whole different video, but I'm a true believer that the more that you create, the more that you produce, the better that you get over time. It's really incremental and exponential, and the more that you really push yourself to be consistent, the better that you're gonna get at whatever you're trying to achieve is over time. Consistency really builds growth and momentum. Once you get off that consistency train, it's so hard to get back. So taking little steps to really find a schedule, find a rhythm, and then really sticking to that rhythm over time yields great results. I've been really appreciative of my YouTube growth and this audience over time. And that's mainly down to me kind of sitting down and deciding, okay, I'm gonna be consistent and follow a schedule. And the same goes for short form. A lot of my growth over the years has been because I just kept showing up and going out and being relentless and filming and producing and figuring out things. A lot of times you find yourself really tired, you don't want to go out and film, and then having those systems, having that calendar to rely on has saved me so many times, and I really recommend you trying it out and seeing how it works for you. If you have any questions on my systems or if you have any recommendations on the processes that you use, please share them down below with the community. The comment section has been great recently and I really appreciate all the interaction, so please continue leaving that down below. If you like my color grade, you like my sound effects, please check out my store. It'll be linked again down below. It's a great help to this channel and I really appreciate it. And if you made it to the very end of the video, I really appreciate it. You're a real one. Please leave the word workflow down below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.